So in continuation of what we were talking about last week, I think that it's good for us to kind of do a review on it, because there was a lot of information that we shared, and Kim brought some really amazing things to what we were talking about. And so sometimes, that having a review is a really good thing.
Well, I don't know what she shares. All I do is I just look at the letters as they go by, and then I just try to trust, that's what I do. I trust the Spirit. And so I'm glad that lines up.
Well, last week we were talking about Matthew 25:5, where in just in English, it's but while the bridegroom withheld, they all dozed and slept. And Ken had started out really stressing about how it's important for us to not lose sight of what the beginning of the verse is by the time we get to the end, because there's so much in it. And so I wanted to emphasize what he was saying, because it was the very first word was grasping the door, grasping a hold of the power of the door that reveals to you the covenant. That was what was setting the whole tone. And we were discussing about those who procrastinate and tarry, that may have loitered around, that when the judges come, the whole thing about when the judges come is that they are a picture of that door to life. So grasping a hold of the door, those that tarried are going to have the judges come that are bringing the seed vision that is meant to be the door of life, and that their goal is to bring a pleasant and righteous life to the people. That's the whole process of it. And then it went into the bridegroom, that the judges were actually the bridegroom, which was, and we saw that it meant a teacher, the one who has learned and has repeated through inculcation the covenant of life.
But when we look at this in the writing, it was a risen noon. So the bridegroom is coming as a teacher, has a form of wisdom that is meant to bring forth this oneness principle. And when we were talking, we were also discussing about that there were two forms of sleep. There was a sleep and a slumber, and then a sleep. And that the sleep and slumber was a sense of drowsiness that was put over mankind to kind of keep them from finding the spiritual path that leads to the completed waters.
Pardon me.
Yeah, and it's interesting, because I was contemplating this, and I don't know if I mentioned it last week, but it's important that we kind of lay this foundation before we move forward, that the word is a nun mem, and when we present very strong spiritual messages to people, and they are of the waters of completion of Father, if they have not gone through the process of mother, they're going to get sleepy.
Seen it many times.
We've seen it so many times. And because they're not ready for it. I mean, their spirit literally puts them in this slumber state, because they haven't gone through the process of what mother's trying to do to tame their beast ego. And a beast ego isn't necessarily, I don't necessarily call it good or bad. It's one that just hasn't been tamed. If somebody is sleepy and they slumber, then it means that they're just not ready for the spiritual revelation that comes from the waters that are above. They just haven't gotten there yet. So to finish up the review on this, that this spiritual path of living water that is set above is actually meant for everyone. It is meant for the entirety of the whole of people, because really we've shared before that everyone is the bride. They just don't necessarily know it. But it's meant to also, so we can be crowned, and that this revelation was coming to empower the people while they were in their flesh. And then we were also talking about the sleep, the second form of sleep. And I said that sleep is in the blood. And really what we were discussing at the end of this is that because the word had ended in a kaf pei, it really was about grasping a hold of the language that brings revelation. But in this fallen form, the fallen pei is a language that doesn't necessarily bring people life or awake. And so it is those who hear from the fallen language are not going to be brought to life. They're going to continue to lie in the grave, because we don't realize that we are the walking dead until the quickening occurs, until we become the living. And the fallen languages don't necessarily provide that for us.
Right.
And so that's just kind of a review of what that whole verse was talking about. I'm going to go ahead and share with you now, moving on. This one is really fascinating to me, and I'm excited to share what is going to come at the end of the verse. And of course, it seems like the big punchlines, the big, fantastic bells and whistles are always at the end of the verse. So we got to set it
Yeah.
up, and then we're going to land the plane with some amazing stuff. And it's just been building since we started at verse 1. It's just been building upon itself. Like it's got this crescendo that's coming. And I love that.
Yeah.
At least we don't have to start from the beginning. We get to start from the middle.
Well, at least today.
Yeah.
So Matthew 25, verse 6, through John Etheridge's translation says, "And in the dividing of the night, there was a cry, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go forth to his meeting." So when we look at, I just found this is interesting. I love to take a look. I get fascinated. Like it's pretty easy for me to not, I wouldn't say get tripped up, but because I don't trip up, I trip out on one word, and just looking at all the details in one word, it just thrills me because I look for all the little hidden treasures. Like I want to investigate the room. I want to look in the corners. I want to look under the rug and the cupboards. And I just want to excavate as much as I can, because there's so much that is being shared in these words. And it's so fascinating to me. So half and middle. So this is between the first and second word. English was translated, King James said, and at the midnight hour, or at midnight. And when you look at the Aramaic, when I was looking at my part of my study books, my Janet Magura's Study Light, awesome material. She had put a little side note that in there, that when this root was added with night, it became the middle of the night, midnight. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense then. So, but when you divide it, so when you look at the word, they have said in the Peshitta, it's just half and middle. But in the Hebrew, it means to split literally and figuratively. But in the fullness of all the interpretations that we can extrapolate out in all of Janet Magura's work, it means to divide, separate, discriminate, distribute, cut into pieces, divide into portions, be half gone. But she also has said it's a metaphor for doubt. So if we don't have these little pieces to know that in the Hebrew language, this word is connected to doubt, then we lose a lot of what is being said in here. And I found it interesting that here's the root right here, Pe Lamed Gimel. And what we have added on the prefix is the Vav Bet, and then the He on the suffix. And so connecting it to some of the things that Ken has taught, what was stolen from the garden, or rather taken away from us, was the Bet He. Because the He was the revelation of our higher spirit that was removed from us, our higher self, so that we would have to build ourselves on the inside to reconnect to that revelation, which then makes you the Bet Tov, a built one. But the revelation of Father's teaching, which connects you to your higher self, has to happen first before you can be the Bet Tov, which is the culmination of the 222 journey.
And that can only be found incrementally, because that's how revelation expresses itself.
In increments. So right here we have this division. This first word means divided. And we know that the teachings of Mother and Father were divided. So on the mother side is the Bet, build it on the inside, and on the father side is through his revelation. Build through revelation, build through mother, that which is revealed by Father, because they've been divided.
And when you're in mother, you're in doubt.
You're still in doubt.
You're still in doubt. And then when you're in Father, you
and this is why
revelation.
Because Father's revelation is what takes you beyond that which you can't see with the natural eye, into the ether, into things that are of the higher knowledge and information that is waiting for someone to connect in maturity in order to receive it. Because if we're not connecting the mother's teaching from like 0 to 12 being at the place of accountability, the age of accountability, and then from 12 years into maturation until you're married, that whole time is spent in the mature teachings that can only be revealed to you if you've done mother's increments correctly, where the gate is then open to you for that revelation. The root word means to doubt. And I love that the letters always resolve the issue. So the first thing you have to do is you have to connect to mother. You have to be humble, build yourself through the 222 process, the spiritual, through the language that brings the revelation that will instruct you so that you can be weaned, because Gimel means to be weaned and ripened, gathering which you need to instruct you, that will then be revealed to you. So this is a way it's already resolving the doubt issue from us. Yes. But if you don't see the letters and you don't know what this is being said, then you're going to go ahead and take a look at what the English has said, and you've missed all of the richness of what is being penned to us. And then the other side of it is, because talking about doubt, these are the little nuggets that I get excited about. We have the bet lamed. I'm going to pull up our, we have the bet and the lamed here. And bet lamed, when you put those two words together, it's two things. It means a heart that is fearful, anxious, and has been terrorized. And it also means, on the other side of it, it's the shortened form of the word husband. So, in connecting to the bridegroom, because that's part of this verse, as the husband comes, he's bringing the mouth that will be speaking revelation to you on the inside, because you have a fearful and anxious heart that needs to be instructed in order to gather, to ripen and wean you off the milk in order to reveal something to you that will get rid of your doubt.
I was just going to say.
So many people right now who are dealing with fear and anxiety, there is something that's connected to their, it's a heart issue. And because, and then when you look at this word, it's connected to doubt. Because those who don't doubt, those who have the confirmation, the revelation of Father, the revelation of who they are, the revelation of I am one, fear and doubt cease to be. So that's all part of this first word. That's so amazing to me.
Yeah, and I love it that that even in itself, the middle is the halfway point. If it's saying what it is, then really you're at the perfect place that reveals in that middle, right? So like Carrie was saying, that if you just looked at the word, that the word resolves itself to tell you the greater intention. Doubt is this. Revelation of the hay sheds light on doubt. But if you didn't know it was there, you wouldn't have the revelation, and you would simply see the word as doubt. But this is the halfway point, is like you're as close to as far as away. It's like that perfect place between the two where light sheds, it illuminates the dark. And so you're able to remove that which you do not know by the revelation of revealing.
And part of the doubt, connecting with what Ken just said too, is the dual-mindedness. If you haven't taken and been able to render everything clear, in having a dual mind, because they're meant to cross over and become one with left and right, male and female, and becoming one, that can cause doubt. So again, in the English translation, you would never see this unless you dig and like, oh my gosh, this is talking about our divided minds that are causing us to have anxiety and doubt. And the resolve is right here. So I find it interesting that this word, the first time that this word is used, as far as in our scriptures, on like with Bible Hub, because Daniel is written in Syriac, aka Aramaic. The first time this word is used is in Daniel 2:41, and this has to do with the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had to ask Daniel to come and interpret it.
Right.
And so it talks about a divided kingdom, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting that here we're talking about a divided kingdom that is meant to actually give you revelation. And then it shall be, here's Hava, which is the root of Haya, to be and come to pass, with an added tav on the front of it. So it's like, okay, so here's the dream. I'm giving you the interpretation. If you have a divided kingdom, it's really meant to bring you power on the inside of the revelation of how to come to pass and have it not be divided, but you first have to have mother's covenant. And that's the very first time that this word is used within our Bible in the book of Daniel. It's incredible.
I love it that the pay lamed, like again, looking as it or at it, is that I look at the words as my body. And so in the center of my being is the pay lamed, the ability to speak light. So if I'm connected to mother correctly and I'm humbly building, I'm able to speak light that allows me to maturely see the Father's revelation.
So what you just said was the finish of this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Gimel being one who is weaned off the milk means that you're in that maturation process.
So from within, through the process of maturation, that I'm able to, because just due diligence has built the intention, now you can speak the revelation forward, because if you're on mother's side, you're building through her revelation. Even though you can't, there's no hay there, the Bet Tav is already stating that you had to build through her revelation. So this is the hidden stuff that's beyond. But now I have the ability to speak the light from within, because that Gimel now is maturity. So I can speak the light from within that allows me to see the mature revelation, because Father is all about it. Mother is humility, Father is meekness. And that's the more mature version of humility.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really, really good. So again, the resolve from doubt, fear, anxiety, anxiousness is already resolved here.
Yeah.
So this leads us to the next word, which I think is again fascinating. They all fascinate me. They're all little diamonds, with different facets that I guess to look at. This is the word for night. And immediately what jumped out at me was the fact that this now has the added aleph on it instead of the hay. Because Lila, and because I actually show it right here, Lila in Hebrew has the hay on the end of it, but in the Aramaic it switches. First of all, the yod switches positions. It's no longer on the outside or on the inside. It moves onto the side of the father, and then it has the aleph added, because in the root it's not there. In the root it's like lamed yod, but it got shifted around, and we have the door on front of it. So again, this door, so looking at last week, grasp a hold of the door, grasp your hand on the door and open up this revelation to you so that you can come out of your slumber, because you're at this point where you're dual-minded, you're having doubt, you have fear, and you have anxiety. And now moving into the night, Dalet Lamed means weak and feeble. So we're talking about doubt, basically doubt and confusion. We're talking about anxiety and fear, and we're talking about weak and feeble. That explains a whole lot of what's going on and why the bridegroom is coming to be able to assist in that. But what we don't see, so the Dalet, again, you wouldn't see this, because in English they would just put night. You wouldn't know that the Dalet was added. You wouldn't know that the power was taken from the inside and put on the outside, because this was meant, this door of revelation of the twin teachings of light, because again, two lameds right next to each other, cherubim pattern on the top of the Ark of the Becoming, literally twin lights. I can connect that to Zohar, right? The word Zohar, the dual double lights, is meant to give you the power that you need to become one. And when we take a look at that, this is actually the way I see it, is that light and dark have become one. Because when we were looking at Hillel and Lila, the shining one, Hey Yod Lamed Lamed, and Lila, Lamed Yod Lamed Hey, same gematria, but now we've taken the twin lights and we've been brought together as one. And that's incredible to be able to see this, that the literal marriage of night and light has converged to become one But if you're weak and feeble still, you're going to see this night is coming as like a twisting away of the light, because you don't realize they're the same thing, and it's going to cause adversity in your life. So in other words, those who are weak and feeble, that have doubt, that have anxious heart, that are easily prone to terror, are going to see this process in the night and the light becoming one, not understanding what's gone on because they didn't get instructed in the way of one. It is going to come as adversity to them. That's essentially what you were talking about earlier.
Very much so. It's very loaded, and I'm not going to get into really where I'm at with it, but
well, because you have more to share on that later on your.
Yeah, but because we got to keep the flow of what this verse is saying, and I don't want to take it off track. But everything is macro, micro, and so again, that this is seen. If you're seeing it from the perspective, if you haven't produced the measure of intention, then you're going to have this doubt, and your doubt is going to be an adversity. It's going to be affliction to you, right? But those that have produced the measure that we become this, they too will be coming in the manifested presence of this revelation, because this word right here, this dalet lamed yod olive, is a progressional becoming that, even though the olive states one, or the power of one, really it's at least at the power of 10,000, because to ascend the right hand path of mother, that first lamed, you are bedecked with the olive of 1,000-fold. That's the olivim. And for it to be on the left-hand side with the twin lameds there, you've gone through mothers and fathers. This is 1,000 may fall at your right and 10,000 on your left. Well, it morphs because it's not necessarily fallen, it's also risen. So this risen one is standing in the tenfold measure of 10,000 times 10,000, or at least 10,000, but it morphs. So one is a huge power factor of revelation that is contained in one vessel. This is what's coming in the earth that will be seen as an adversary to those that have not become. This is the night and the dark that we're talking about, that will shed light on who they are through their revelation of becoming.
So in other words, connecting it to the previous verse so that we don't lose track of it, those who have the fallen languages that have actually been meant, it was meant to bring forth revelation, but because it didn't, and it didn't get them to the place where they were risen above the grave, they were still sleeping. They had the sleep and the slumber, and they weren't quickened into a resurrected life. They're still lying in the grave. This is what Ken's talking about. These are the ones that are going to be having the weak and feeble heart that is going to have adversity come to them. Yeah. Because they were never equipped. They weren't given that which was necessary to get them to rise up, to be able to see that night and light have become one through the marriage. And then therefore, if you are in oneness, you're no longer judging. And if you're no longer judging, then there's no reason to fear, because you've perfected love. You're not going to see anything different. It's like as a baby coming into the world, they know nothing. They are the pinnacle of the Christ anointing, where they are just loving awareness, because they don't know any different. There is nothing, there is no distortion in them. So these prepared vessels are going to see no distortion between the night and the light, because they realize they're one and the same. They were divided for us to learn from, but the oneness principle of the Christ anointing says, I no longer judge. I don't see this anything other than creation power at 0 point in potential only. It isn't harming or healing or hurting. It just is. Just is.
Yeah, and that is
as it.
Right.
Not at it.
Yeah, they only judge through, again, that word right there is they had to go through the merciful acts of the good son. That you cannot be that word. To be that frequency and resonate to that frequency, their adjudication is solely based off mercy. That is the perfect balance and harmony of what that word is saying. As one, they are perfectly balanced as mercy and judgment through their own actions of becoming the frequency of that word. That's the spiral staircase. That's beautiful.
It is.
This ties
the spiral step.
Yeah, this ties
right
into
here.
The picture of becoming through the ayin.
Yeah. So now as we're moving on in this, the difference between who are prepared and who are not prepared, we actually have the word to be, was, and turn. And we've shared this many times. This word happens quite frequently, but this word would be connected to hava or haya, which is the root of yod he vav he. And it means to be, to become, to come to pass. But it morphed in its static position, it would be he vav aleph. But in this position, it's now he vav tav. So when we look at this, so the process, again, because the resolve is already within the letters, the process of those who are building and through the revelation that are no longer doubting, those who have married the night and the light together will be marked with the Father's covenant, because they've turned their nature entirely around, because the revelation came to them, that which they needed to connect to, piercing them within, connecting their heart to the covenant and of the Father's love. And because again, it's on the suffix side. So we've gone beyond Mother's teaching. We're now fully discussing Father's teaching. So again, to connect it, again, I keep going back and forth, but his revelation was presented here. So to those who were weaned off the milk, were ripened, gathering what they needed, the instruction that came from the Father's revelation, so they could marry the light and the dark together, or the night and the light together. Now they've been turned, and now they've received the covenant of the Father. So this progression, these three words are all meant to proceed, one after another, to show you the process of turning and becoming. And it's the same exact gematria, different order of the letters of the mark that carries revelation that we see in Ezekiel 9:4. And again, I like connecting it to things so that we can oh, okay. Because again, we've been discussing for a while about the mark of the beast, the mark on the forehead and the hand. And again, it's about the work and deed of the hand, specifically the right hand, going to the Mother's teaching first, so that we would be marked. And Ezekiel 9:4, and the Lord said unto him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. And so when we look at the words, actually in this flipped, this needs to go in front. There we go. To place a mark, that what we are looking for, here's tava. It's supposed to be tav vav he, but it's yod tav. So again, taking the revelation of the mature teachings that give you power so that you can receive the Father's mark and be marked. So it really means the mark and the mark. It's two marks. And Mother's revelation, whenever you see the he added, because of the way Hebrew works, there should be a lamed, but because it's in shorthand, they left the lamed out. So it's the revelation of the hidden teachings that will mark you. And this portion, this tav vav tav, this is thoth, as in wisdom, that has been given power on the inside.
Speaking from the revelation.
Yeah. So this whole thing is related to the mark of those who will be turned.
It's also, can I share it? Just one quick thing that it speaks to me. As soon as I'm looking at it, because I can see I'm connecting to up above so I don't lose track. This is just how I've taught myself, is to make sure I connect to what the doubt is, right? But these that have become the night, this could also be classified as a statement too, because this could say, behold, the pierced mark, right? Because that hey is also behold, him, right? It's also, or hey, which is behold the revelation, but behold the piercing of the mark.
Which that makes sense because of here. So to mark out, it's the...
Oh, there you have it right there in Job.
Right here?
Behold is my signature.
Yeah, this is interesting. So when I was looking at, again, I'm trying to take it back so I can connect the Aramaic with the Hebrew, with the New Testament, with the Old Testament, to see the marriage of the two. And again, I'm always looking at first occurrences, and the first occurrence of this one was in Job. And this was what was amazing. One of the translations was, behold my signature. And people would scratch their head on that unless you know that the letter Tav, even by itself, just the letter Tav means signature. It means sign, mark, covenant, signature, and fingerprint. And so this is behold, hen, my signature. And then there's Shaddai, and then the word that means testimony. Like, this is huge. Behold, and it's a teacher of light that has been empowered that says, behold, is my signature as the Almighty, as a witness and a testimony. And it has 2 risen noons here. Not 1, but 2. So again, when we were looking at above, the 2 light teachings of Mother and Father on top of the Ark of the Covenant, we're connecting it to the mark. And the first time that this is used, this word mark, has to do with a witness and a testimony of the 2 spiritual paths of Mother and Father, the power to see them that gives you the power. Behold, my signature as a witness and a testimony. Wow.
Yeah, that's the signature of love. That's the etching. Tav is also the etching too. It's also a scratching or indentation of a stylist on a, inscribing into impressing.
Yep, right here.
All right. Yeah, that's really cool. They're all powerful. It's just they're all.
So now we're moving on to, so we've turned and we've become, now we're moving into a cry, clamor, and noise. And the root of this is we'll go back to, because that way I can show it a lot more easier. The root of it is Kuf, Ein, Aleph, and the Tav has been placed in the middle. So we just explained what Tav is through the constituent letters that make up the symbol, which is Tav Vav.
Mm-hmm.
We just talked about what the mark was. Now this is a mark that happens on the inside of us. It's not mother on the prefix or father on the suffix. This is an eternal mark that connects us to source. So mother and father are the deity below, the Yod He Vav He, the seraphic teachings. This mark is on the inside, which connects you to creator, like above Yod He Vav He. This is, you are now marked with the signature source of creator on the inside. And it's calling out to us. This is what's so fascinating about this word when you take a look at it, because it means to cry, a clamor and a noise. Its source is calling us to do something, to compress light in the circle of time by that which was once hidden, now revealed to you, so you can find the narrow path between, to give you the eyes to see the fountain within you that gives you the power to elevate your flesh so that you can become one. But this is so that you can be marked on the inside as connected in love as source.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a huge word. And what is fascinating about, so if it's crying out, we have the Hebrew word for time right here. So this has been crying out in time for source to say, connect, be marked on the inside, connect to the source power as a creator, knowing it on the inside. And so I was looking at, they didn't connect it to a Hebrew word, but I'm like, well, here's the Hebrew word that basically means the same thing, to cry out, but it's not a resh, it's kuf aleph, but the resh has been removed. So in other words, headship was removed. So in time, this is being called out to say, connect with me so I can reestablish your headship. But you had to walk in humility first through mother to get to father's teaching to learn meekness so that you could be marked on the inside with the covenant of love, the signature frequency of source during time, in the process of becoming one. And when you trace down because sometimes I forget, there's just so many words, and this isn't our firstborn language. I mean, we're learning this as the Spirit is teaching us. Et comes from odd, which I like, are you kidding me? So the dalet was removed to put the tav in place. Well, odd from the previous verse, or the dalet, grasp the door with your hand, grasp the power of the door so that you can open this revelation up to you, so that you can be marked with that. And the Ein Dalet talks about advancement and perpetuity, to pass on and continue, to remove, and specifically to bedeck. So once you've gone through the door, you don't need the door, because the door is what's on the inside, opening the door to reveal the weak and feeble, from the very first word that we were looking at about the weak and feeble position that we are in order for us to be marked on the inside in the circle of time, being marked now. This is bringing everything into our now space, right, as we're speaking, because we're talking about headship, and I'll connect it to you why I'm saying the resh was removed, and you'll see it on the last word, and why I'm so excited to share this. But this cry has been going out for a very long time for people that would respond to this, and the only way they could do it is by compressing light within. And then taking the light and the night to become one. This is a whole process starting from beginning to end in this one little verse at about the midnight cry. So then we're led to lo and behold. And lo and behold, so in Aramaic, lo and behold is hey aleph. And this right here is a static form of it. So again, we're talking about getting into that place of 0 point where there's potential energy with no distortion. This is a representation of spirit breath. This is the exhale and the inhale. Both are being presented through spirit, revelation of one. That's what it's saying. Behold, here's the revelation of one. And we just were talking about the night and the light being married, the call going out to be marked with this in time so that we can be adorned and bedecked with the oneness principle through the night and the light. Behold, the revelation of oneness is coming. And in Hebrew, this would have been a hey noon. The noon is removed.
Hen.
The noon is removed, which means whenever the noon is removed, if it's within a word, it means that it is a highly spiritual issue that pertains nothing to the flesh. Nothing to the flesh. So this is, and that would make sense with this word, because this is like double spirit here. This is all about the spirit revelation. This doesn't have anything to do with the natural course of things in life. This has everything to do with the progression of perpetuity that exists beyond the flesh suit. So in time, this revelation is coming so that we can pass and move beyond the flesh into spirit values, having diminished the flesh to where it ceases to be. It's literally ridding ourselves of the flesh suit, releasing us from what could be seen as a prison into giving us into life where it's more real than where we're at right now, because we are spirit beings. And that's what it's saying. I mean, there is no flesh here. It's been removed. So in the lo and behold, the flesh that separates us, because again, when we're dealing with flesh, we're dealing with ego. This is showing us the revelation of oneness means the elimination of ego. There is no flesh. The ego is not present any longer. Behold, the revelation of one. And then right after that, because it's also lo and behold, the next word we have, bridegroom. Lo and behold, bridegroom. So where I'm seeing this progression happening is the qualifications of who exactly is the bridegroom. You know, we've already talked the previous few verses. There was a lot that it was telling us and sharing with us, but this specific verse is telling us, if we have the eyes to see it, who the bridegroom is, because they went through this whole process. They took the light and they took the night and they married them into one.
Yeah.
And they're coming through spirit to reveal the oneness principle, but it also means that they are being revealed. And we've already discussed previously that this really is the word for betrothal, because it's bride and groom that are connected. And that we also had, because they've entered into the family. So we talk about the greater family, you know, not just our flesh family, but our spiritual family. And that it's also means one who's a teacher. And a teacher is one that's learned. You know, obviously you can't teach what you haven't learned, but repeating the process through inculcation, it has given them the ability to have this status where they are separated out as the teacher, because there's those that are, and there are those that are not. So this bridegroom is coming as one who has been separated out, coming as one who is the teacher, because they learned, so therefore they can teach what they learned, but they found chet, or het yod tav, which the het is a secret, it's a hidden meaning for the letter of life, because it's chai tav, the life of the covenant. So they are coming to those who are dead, who are still in the grave, in order to bring them, to resurrect them into life. Because they've been set apart to instruct.
Right, absolutely. It's so amazing when you see this, that our whole morphology, like I said on the word before, that our morphology of what we thought was life, we're hanging on to it. Right? If you're not living, you're dying, kind of a thing. So live. But as soon as we go up to the higher degrees, if there was a circle and there were steps, as soon as we move into seeing Father correctly, we're realizing, oh my goodness, this is not life. I'm just experiencing death. Life is on the other side. And, you know, that head is really a tabernacle in the wilderness right there. That head is really entering into the tabernacle. This is separating out what is and what is not. And if Carrie says that we're making light and dark as one, then also, if it's true what she said, then also we are connecting good and evil. Because they're both the same. We're saying the same thing. So,
well, and that's going to lead me to my point down below.
Okay, cool.
So we can connect what you just said down on the very last word, which is, because you don't know what it is,
No.
but we're getting there.
Okay.
So the other thing that I wanted to show before we move on is that here we have the gematria, or the gematria, for the Aleph Nun Tav, which Spirit was saying that this is the Word made flesh. Because Aleph, first letter, Tav, last letter, those who will be first will be last, and those who are last will be first. Those who are last will be first to have made their flesh through the Word, through the Aleph Tav. They are those who found life through the covenant, that are coming as the teachers. So amazing. But I wanted to connect again to the first time that this word is used. And the only time that this word is used, as in the Hey and the Aleph, they're interchangeable, is the literal word in Hebrew for the wedding, the actual wedding. So the day when the bride and the groom to be come together to be married, to become king and queen. This is specifically speaking about and connecting it to the wedding day. And it's only used once. This word is only used one time, and it's in the Song of Songs. Of course, it's in the Song of Songs. It's like that. The whole Song of Songs, the Song of Solomon, reveals so much in that one book. Everything that you need to know is in that one book. Literally. You don't really need to study anything else. If you want to know the whole story, study the Song of Songs and you will get it from beginning to end. It is all in there. It is an amazing love letter. But this was, go forth, ye daughters of Zion, and behold, King Solomon with the crown wherewith his mother crowned him in the day of his espousals and in the day of the gladness of his heart. The reason why I wanted to bring this in, two things here. There is a crown and then there's a crown. So there's two crowns here. So we've got the crown and then the mother crowned. But what is it saying? The first crown, Ein Tet Resh, see and know the wrestle to raise you up from the poor and destitute to be a leader. This is a gift from God. And what is added? The Bet Hey. That's why I wanted to bring this in, because the Bet Hey was the very first thing that was added at the beginning of what we were talking about, was that which was stolen from the garden. The Bet Hey is build your temple so that you can connect to that which was taken from you, your higher self, as a father's going to reveal that to you.
We need to remember too that the garden is us. We are the garden.
So the crown that is being given to those who have built through the 222 process and connecting back to their higher self in that revelation is a gift from God. And then here's the word for the second crown. And the sheen has been added on top of it in front. This is a crown of fire. This is a crown of fire that is given to those who will be revealed, conjunctive dash, as the teaching shepherds of light that have been filled with meekness. It's a crown of fire. This is becoming seraphim. So the day of the wedding, the crown of fire is being placed upon the heads of those who built themselves through the Father's revelation. And then the day is Beyom. So the mother, it's with the Vav, Beyom. The mothers who have built are those who are going to receive their crown of fire. And gladness, and then we'll move on. So it's gladness of heart. Gladness, Sheen Memhet, that is the same gematria or mashak for oil for anointing. The oil of anointing, and then the tav was added on the end. So their oil of gladness, this literally is the oil of gladness, is receiving the mark, the signature frequency of the Father. Because now, remember, we were talking about the heart above was a Bet Lamed. This is a gladness of heart. Now it's in the right order. Now it is one who has instructed their inside. So their heart is in the right position, the authority on the inside. They took authority over their emotions. They are no longer weak and feeble. They are no longer prone to anxiety and fear and terror, because they found the oil of gladness, which I just think is the oil of gladness. It literally is the oil. They found the anointing within. And this is connected to the only time that this word is used is in the wedding in the Song of Solomon.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, trying to bring stuff in to say there's a much bigger picture being painted here, connected again to the oil. And that brings gladness of heart to those who have fear and anxiety.
Just so much.
What else do you want to add?
Well, just the two sheens are mother and father in that lower verse right there. We have the first sheen that was added and that sheen right there.
Right.
That is mother and father. That's the
And
name.
that's Shem, by the way.
That's the name of those that have separated out to be marked. So it's speaking as the bridegroom. So now the fire is now the name of those that have separated out to be called life. This is the mark of life now. You've married mother and father.
You've been anointed and now you have gladness.
Right. And
on the wedding day.
And it should be connected to Song of Solomon, because And I'll share this on this part because it's so fitting that, you know, Solomon was marrying himself as we are marrying ourselves, mother and father within us, right?
Mm.
Well, because people don't know that the Shulamite.
Right. So Solomon's name roots out at Shalom, right? That's the root. Goes to 7999. And also the Shulamite roots out at 7999. But for Solomon to write Song of Solomon, he wrote both sides of it. But yet when we look at things, we read it, oh, here's this man that's wooing this woman, and we look at it as a love story. Oh, there's two sides of this. But the same man wrote the story. He was, and he was. He was Solomon writing it as the wooer, and the Shulamite woman as that was being wooed. He was wooing himself, and so the revelation is Shalom gathers Shalom. I gather myself onto myself. I am the revelation of the song. I am Qumran. I am the living song of Solomon, of peace.
Because he married his separate entities and became one.
Yeah.
And that's why what I wanted to show is that the day of the wedding, so here's wedding, Het Tov Nun Hey, when it's said in his espousals or the day of the wedding, it is Het Tov Nun Tov. So Shlomo to Shulamite, Yod Tov. He received the power of being marked with the covenant where he became united as one. So they've always had questions. Well, who's this Shulamite woman? Who's this? And everybody is like, it's himself.
Yeah.
He's talking about a story, a beautiful story about the process of his own becoming.
He doesn't want to marry immaturity.
No.
He wants to marry the mature peace. She's waiting for the Shulamite to come into the fullness of her peace, the root of her name, 7999, Shalom.
So he was raising up the divine feminine within himself, or rather pulling the divine feminine down, raising up the divine masculine within, and meeting right in the center of his heart where they became one and united in a Kundalini experience. And that was his whole writing, but he had to tell it in a story as he was really masking it, but that's what it was all about.
Yeah, it's good. That's a powerful.
It's a very good segue because that's what this whole segment of the wise and foolish virgins parable is.
Yeah, we don't know how to stand, and so we've come in with Enosh with wobbly legs, weak and feeble, and we're learning how to stand. And this is the mission. So
it makes you want to look up, you know, where it says that you know, marriage and being married, given in marriage, will cease.
Well, because you become.
Yeah, because you become, and you don't. Yeah, you're not.
And I've actually looked at that they will not be given in marriage anymore, and I've already looked at that, and it's because we become one.
Yeah,
you know, there's no need. The external marriage is that in duality, we have been divided to experience it on the external side to find out that it's not sustainable.
Much affliction.
It was never meant. Yeah, much affliction. So
you know,
that would be Maleficent. Well, from what you were talking about, because it takes a lot to be able to work with two separate identities that have two separate egos, trying to bring them into one and realizing that the only way to make this work is for us to find oneness within, so that we then can connect in that oneness that we've already found within that makes our marriage secure.
Sure.
So
the whole process is becoming one. That's again the premises of 1 to 1. From 1 was 2, and then from 2 we go back to 1. That is
so perfect segue to the next word.
It is. Wow. Amazing how that works.
Atah. So the way they have put it in the Peshitta, if you just go and look up the interpretation of what was translated, what the definition is, there's way more than what they show you. They say it means come and bring. And this is really important. Yes, come and bring. And so we've got one that has been connected to the other one. So what this is this is mother as one and father as one that have been connected in covenant. So really, we just went through the wedding, right? We went through the wedding, and this shows that mother and father are one, and they are connected through covenant to one another. But they literally now are unified in one word. And look at this. This is so beautiful. It's so beautiful. This is connected to the Aleph Tav that we have in Hebrew, but it would be Aleph Vav Tav, right? Aleph Vav Tav, Ot, which means a sign, miracle, pledge, token, and standard. But the Vav became the Tav. It changed. It went, now it's connected to source on the inside. The covenant of source creator. I'm going to cry. Of the two that are one, that are now connected to source on the inside. It's no longer the Vav. Like, you have to be pierced within your heart first. You have to have, this revelation has to come and pierce you to go, there's something that I'm missing. There's a process that I need to attain so that I can have this and come and bring this message. I'm coming to bring it. And here's the second part of it. It means to come and arrive. So when you have Aleph Tav Aleph, you've arrived and you're bringing it forth because you went on a journey and you're just passing through. You know, we are not of the world, but we are in the world. We're passing through on a journey.
Sojourner.
So that we can be a sign and a miracle as a standard that is showing people the way. And I love this. It's an idiom meaning to plant. To plant means to produce and to bear. So this is already connecting to the previous word up here with the noon, because we know that the noon is the seed of life that produces progeny. That is perpetuity, a continuation. And we've already talked about the word becoming flesh and producing what? The nature of now becoming the sign and the miracle. So that which we plant, the seeds that we plant in the process of becoming, are going to bear what? Takes us all the way back up to the top with the very top word about bearing and ripening fruit.
I was just going to say, this is what we just, even before we even started the teaching, this is all about really the parable of the fig tree, that it hasn't produced, it's been barren in its season. Well, this one is not barren, and it produces because it's able to conceive, right? So it's able to carry, then it's able to then bear, right? It's bared up so it can bear down to deliver itself. Therefore, it's qualified to deliver another, to assist.
And so that means this is the risen seed.
Yes.
This isn't fallen seed. This is risen seed that is going to produce life in perpetuity, because those who are producing it have become the Word made flesh. So because they become the Word made flesh, they are spiritual beings as a new entity. Therefore, their seed progeny is going to continue to produce life that will be, if they are instructed in the way of mother and father, becoming the sign as a miracle, because they've changed themselves. They're no longer the weak and feeble. They no longer have fear and anxiety. They are the overcomers. And that which they produce in progeny has the ability to do so because that which they come from has already become. This is like epigenetics.
Well, this is
I mean, really, this is epigenetics because we are changing our DNA. So as we change our DNA, as we come together with life seed and create progeny, because our DNA was changed, we are then passing that structure in our DNA to our offspring. This is so big. That's why this message is going forth, is because this is how we can come together as families and literally change the world into a higher structure of DNA that has more light in it. Because we are the Word made flesh.
Absolutely. That there's so much in that even when you said that, because from the beginning, the tree, and I'm going to do a rendering down on this on another teaching, but like Carrie was saying, that this is the seed that fell into the earth. So we can redefine the fall by simply a seed that has potential to grow, but it still is given choice to go in a direction. But this direction is directly defined by the intention of the good seed, because it has produced the measure of attention by going the right way. This one is able to define what evil is by going the way of good. And so this is completed intention right here, that's bared much, and it produced much, and it is ripened and weaned to be called a first.
Exactly. A one to the 1,000.
Yep. That's a powerful.
That's such a huge word.
Yeah.
It's such a huge
Just,
word.
yeah.
And so then going into the next word, so I'm sitting here not necessarily scratching my head, but I'm looking at what Peshitta on their tab is saying. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. To go out, to defend, exercise, to go out, to cast out and eject. And I'm already thinking about, okay, casting out. And I'm thinking, I'm taking it back to the garden because everything is the garden. We're the garden. About them being cast out of the garden. Well, they were actually sent out. They weren't cast out. They were sent out with a seraphic message to go take it to the rest. To say, here we are in our fallen nature. So taking it back to the top, you're fearful and you're anxious and you're weak and feeble. And we're going to take this seraphic message out to you so that you can learn to overcome to be this. I mean, that's really what it is. And so when I looked at this, the root of this word is supposed to have a noon in it. There is no noon.
Yeah, it's all spiritual.
This is, so what it's telling us that this verse, this is all an entirely spiritual matter here. If you try to connect it into the material world, you are going to miss the efficacy of what it was intended for you, because you can't lower it into the lower nature, because this is highly, it's a message that's set above. So if we connect it to the last verse, this is the noon mem.
Yeah.
This is the highly spiritual message of the living waters that are meant to take us above, that are not meant to be connected below. This is to draw you out, Moshe.
Yeah.
Draw you out, to set you above.
These ones have arisen. These
Yep.
are, and even for the sent out part, these are the scent of the arisen, the scent of the rose.
So the definition of this word in More of the Fullness, thank you, Janet Magura, with all of her research. To go out, come out, leave, depart, go away, escape, to cast, send, put, throw, drive, draw out, and removed. So that should start planting some seeds. And then the second one is to train, exercise, bring, lead, carry out, dismiss, and expel. And again, because it's a language of duality, depending on what your eyes see will determine how you translate this and what it means. So dependent on the mirror that is within you, are you thinking that you're being rejected and you've been cast out? Or are you looking at it as that you're coming out, that there has been an escape meant for you because you're being drawn out of the waters of chaos? You're being led out. You're being brought out, second Exodus, into something much greater. And so when we look at the idioms of this, so again, for people that don't know what idiom is, I put this definition: a group of words established by usage having a meaning not deducible from those individual words. So in the dictionary definition, it's raining cats and dogs, or to see the light. So this would be something that the Hebrews understood about this word nefach, to know what it was saying, that the idiom, and here we have this a second time. To plant means to produce. So we have two words back to back that talk about planting and producing. And this doesn't have bearing, which makes sense because the noon is removed. So we're not talking about progeny here. We're talking about producing something within us ourselves. Because what we do ourselves, yes, it can affect our DNA, but we can't do it for our progeny. This is specifically doing with what we produce within us, because they have their sovereign choice to walk in the way they choose to walk, and we cannot do it for them. So that's why this word doesn't have progeny connected to it, hence why the noon was removed. This is your spiritual producing, what you've done. And when you look at the word, pei, vav, kuf, vav, This is a pierced mouth. So this is, yes, it's piercing, which means that you have, there's something that has changed your language so that your mouth is speaking, like the piercing that goes within your heart because of the message, the risen message, not the fallen language, but the risen languages have produced a measure within you so that when you speak, you are speaking seed life for those to connect so that they can compress light within the circle of time. So this is like the heart of humility and meekness that compresses light, that is connected to the Father and is standing in the position of meekness. Again, this whole verse is about the qualifications of the bridegroom and why they're coming and who they're coming to. But they have to have a mouth that has been pierced, meaning controlled, that brings the revelation so others can connect within to the message on the inside so that they can compress light as well and become a meek one who is connected to Father. And when we look at the rest of the idioms, so this is about the spiritual path of the spiritual words that are meant to plant the seeds so that others that are connecting to the message can too produce from it. So making the barren to be able to produce a spiritual seed within them that then brings them life. And here, this is what I think is so profound. Well, I'll say this first. A boat in disembarking, and we were talking about that on this same word, an escape, being let out, the escape, and we've been talking about Merkaba, and this will really connect to the next word. But look at what happens on the flip side of this word. Because of the mouth has power, the mouth speaks revelation. This is also connected to spreading rumors. Because spreading rumors can put through that pierced mouth, can connect into other people's hearts that will then change the outcome.
Well, it goes back to the beginning, doubt.
Yep, that will cast doubt. That's really good. And so I was looking at that going, oh my gosh, that's why the pierced mouth has to be very careful about what it speaks. Needs to be mindful and have care about what they are releasing, because it can connect at the heart level, because they've been given authority of the mouth to speak. And then it also has an idiom about spending and paying and having to do with money. And, we've talked a lot about, you vote with your dollars, or your dollars will tell much about you, of who you are and what your priorities are by that which you spend your money on. But what's most interesting to me on this is it also means events that are coming to pass. So again, we're talking about a wedding that is going to come to pass. And it's about those who are producing and bearing fruit that have been weaned off the milk, that are no longer fearful, no longer have anxiety, are no longer weak and feeble, that are coming as a sign, miracle, pledge, and token that have bore much fruit, that are going to be the mouth speaking these revelations. Did you want to add anything else to that before we go to the next word?
Well, just with the money part of that too, that a lot of this language is that when we become a currency. This is all really
transactive language.
Commerce.
Yeah.
Right. It's a commerce concept, but money is directly related to, again, like Carrie was saying about where you spend your money, but it's also usually money is spent to produce an ingathering that becomes a summational total. Your summation is based because you are a currency of ingathering that produces a summational measure, but it still is given choice, like Carrie was just saying, that we're able to produce doubt or we're able to give hope in the true frequency of what the word is directing. But that is solely based on how you are spending your inheritance.
Yeah. It reminded me, because you were talking about summation of total, and we were looking at the word rosh in Colossians, which is the sum.
Right. Yeah,
the sum of the collecting of fire, really. This is the determination of the summation. So I was thinking
Yeah.
about that because we were talking about that last week as well, that this whole journey is the summation of total.
It's a
And
process.
you just
yeah.
brought that up.
Yeah, it's a process of acclimation that produces the ability to breathe high mountain air, right?
Yeah.
Everything is inclination of ingathering that produces a summational measure. But that is still works in polemics because we're still given choice. So do we cast out or do we shed light?
Very, very good segue. Because the very last word in English is interpreting is, that it says to come out and meet the bridegroom. And so the only thing that the Peshitta gave us was that this word just means meeting. When you go into a little bit deeper, it's meeting, meet with, encounter, happen, befall, and engage. But the root is Aleph, Resh, Ain. So you can't, I'll see what I can do. It's Aleph, Resh, Ain, but the Vav has been placed now in the center of the word. So we talked about the Tav coming in on the inside, which is the covenant with source. This is one who has a pierced heart that has become light.
That's that's a double light there. Lamed or.
Well, yeah, I know it is.
Right.
So, but this is also with the teaching shepherd, right?
Right.
This means to instruct and to teach.
That's the staff of light.
The staff of authority, the staff of light that has become light.
This is a budded staff.
This is so amazing to me to see what this is. So they're coming out. So the bridegroom is coming out and is going to be revealed as the teachers of light. So again, remember, it's Ein, Resh, Aleph, Resh, Ein is the root. So in that static form, it's like, okay, so here we're just having a meeting. Well, this is something much greater than that. This is an encounter, something that's going to happen where the revelation of this word as the standard, as a sign, as a miracle is coming out to be revealed as the teaching shepherds of light. And the reason why I say teaching shepherds, and I just released something here about the word evil and about it being attached to leadership, we have Resh Ein He. And Resh Ein He means to tend a flock, to pasture it, to graze it, generally to rule, by extension, to associate with it as a friend. So these teaching shepherds that are going to be revealed as the bridegrooms, the teachers that have been instructed themselves through the way of inculcation, are going to be revealed as the teachers, as light. They literally will be revealed as light. They will be transfigured and they will be the shepherds. They will be a companion and a friend. And it's interesting because right in the middle of this also means evil.
I was going to say that can I share something? You done? Can I just share for a second?
Yeah, because I can finish up. I know what I'm going to say next.
Well, I was just going to say that on that Ayin Hey, that even though you can't see it, it's hidden because that Hey cannot be there without the prefix Hey already. It had to be established, otherwise that Hey it's not really full, right? So really, what this is the knowing of good and evil. This is the knowing of Yod He Vav He, because you have to have the vision of the first revelation to have the piercing of the second revelation that this is. So Yod He Vav He is actually hidden in this word. You just can't truly see it. It's not written in there in code, but the expression of frequency is already stating that these are the teachers of light that are the risen through the knowing of good and evil. They went through the template of Yod He Vav He.
Because Yod He, Vav He, the twin revelations, and then the symbol He is actually spelled as He He or He Aleph, which we were just sharing, lo and behold.
Right.
The spirit breath, those that are going to be revealed as the teaching shepherds of light, that are the companion and friends. They are the leaders that see the revelation. They see it, they know it, they've become it, and they will be revealed to bring forth the Father's teaching. So what we've been sharing with in several things and Ken's going to continue to move this forward, is that those who are coming this time are going to be revealed as Father. Yeshua came to reveal Mother, because you can't come to the Father unless you go through the Mother first.
Mm-hmm.
These are coming revealed as the Father through his authority.
Mm-hmm.
This would
And
be,
go ahead.
well, yeah, I don't want to step on you. So, when you finished?
The only thing that I wanted to add, because we're connecting the dots and we were talking about Solomon and the Shulamite in the wedding of marrying himself, divine feminine and divine masculine, this word for shepherd is actually a feminine word. This is why the divine feminine and the goddess had to come and meet as with the Godhead and becoming one in order for this to become and materialize. So entering into the age of light and love is the raising up of the goddess, which we've always been told is bad, and Isis is bad, and this is all evil, and Asherah is bad. Well, technically, you could see it as evil, because depending on which side you've been in, if you've gone through the process of mother and father, if you are one that is prone to doubt, if you're one that is prone to being in the place of adversity because you don't see that night and light are the same exact thing, and you have an anxious heart that is prone to terror, this is going to absolutely scare the bejesus out of you, because they're coming in. They are shepherds. They are leaders. It's the divine feminine as the goddess marrying the god, but it's going to come, and it's going to some, they are going to perceive it as being evil. But really what Ken was sharing before, this word means affliction. And we went up at the top and it meant adversity. So in the time of adversity, there are those who are going through affliction that are going to see this and are going to be on the completely different flip side, because they are not going to understand what it is. And in the completion of this, bringing in Solomon, Leorshalem is the word for Jerusalem in the New Testament. Not every time is it used. It's used 59 times in the New Testament as Jerusalem. But again, we have Leor in front of the word Shalom, which means to be completed and perfected in the way of peace. So the teaching shepherds of light that come in the way of peace are also those that are coming as the shepherds.
Yeah, Yara Shalom, the way of the arrow is the way of peace, and this is the teachings of light. There's a lot on that word, and that's a whole teaching in itself. Well, they all are teachings in themselves, and this is the drips and drops. But yeah, that anyone that has stayed on the left-hand side, which is the Father, that has stayed in the dark and has lived in the mysterious, and has chosen not to journey through the intention of Mother, will be sealed in the dark when Father shows up, or will be judged for not moving through, or given opportunity to go through the light. So you're not going to be able to stay in the dark and the mysterious side of Father when Father comes in, because now the dark is revealed through those that have journeyed through Mother. Through the white, through the light, they are now able to see the dark and the mysterious and complete the intention to become fathers through the process of mothering.
So in other words, the harvest that's coming is separating out those who have and have not, because those who went through the light and the night that have met into one aren't going to be divided out and separated, because they found the oneness principle through the service to others rather than to service to self, because service to self has stayed on the dark and the mysterious side because they've wanted the power. They've wanted the power of Father, but they never got to the place of the light in the service of Mother. And so they were taking all of the power without realizing that really they needed to give, because it's that twin measurement of the giving of Mother and the giving of Father that is the true power. So when the harvest happens, those of the dark are being separated out, and they will go to a dark place, not hell. Because there is no hell. Sheol, we are in the lowest place that we possibly can get. They will be separated out and given another opportunity to continue to learn, to realize that they need to go through Mother.
Completion is completion. A circle is a circle. You can't come into the fullness through partiality. I mean, yes, you can if you've completed partiality to make it full, but if you stayed on that side, you can't call yourself full by not making it full. That's the laborious work of looming the garment or knitting or weaving, whatever it may be. That, and this measure, the only reason that these will be them is that they have produced that measure. And so by that process, they will be really, it will be the mercy judgment message that will be presented based on their own ascension process of the merciful words of adjudication that they've done themselves. They've had to render clear the anointing oil to then become that which is to be called the revealed of the anointed.
Which is really the revealing of the one head.
Which is Shalom.
Right. But
right. Yes, absolutely.
One who is connected to the head, one head.
Absolutely. Those that flow down as the living waters, straight as the arrow, they will be the teachers of light. Shalom.
And they're all of leadership. They're all of one mind because they've gone through both pathways and they see the way of one.
And in that, they're given uniqueness of individuality.
Of course. And that, because that goes to Shem.
Yeah.
And we were talking about that before, about the Shem.
Yeah.
Are those who are of the living fire and the living water that have a distinction, a set apartness. They are of authority, honor, and character, having integrity. They are of the name. So the name takes on many names, but it is of one.
You're an extended fractal of source that is allowed the expression.
So we don't lose the individuality.
No.
It's just one head of leadership because everybody's been unified into the way of one, of understanding and rendering everything clear and bringing it into the light.
Yeah, you've counted the cost. And this confused me when I was breaking it down because I was a little honestly intimidated by losing my, I'm like, well, oneness, I'm going to lose my individuality. And it kind of freaked me out a little bit until I realized that no, the due diligence of processing and walking through obedience and the disciplinary act of obedience really produces the right of heirship that allows you to be an expression of a fractal of source. Well done. You've now completed this and you are allowed to be that expression. And that really freed me. Like, wow, I was a little lost in the concept at first. And then the Spirit just showed me, like, no, continue on the journey. And because of that, you're an extended expression of all creator.
So if we're doing a summary of this, just really quickly, this is speaking to those who have doubt and have entered into the place, if I can, there we go. Those who have doubt, who have entered into the place of adversity, it has been meant in order to build you, to reveal to your higher self, so that you can be empowered in the way of one by taking the night and the light and bringing them together so that you're no longer weak and feeble, so that you can build your heart through the mouth that speaks revelation so that you don't no longer have to be anxious and fearful or doubt, so that you can be marked with the living breath, having the covenant of one, the signature frequency of the Father in time, where it has been revealed to you what is necessary through the compression of light to be adorned and bedecked for perpetuity and for continuance and advancement, which is the way of one. Lo and behold, this revelation will come and be presented to you. The bridegroom is going to come, that which is the bride and the groom that have become the teacher because they have been instructed through the way of inculcation. They are separated from those that are on the outside of this in order to bring the covenant of life. They will be, what they will be bringing is because they are a sign and a mark and a miracle and a beacon, as one that is bringing the revelation of the mother and the father that have been connected in covenant, which is all about the wedding, in becoming one. Because it is through that process that we are going out and coming and bringing forth this spiritual message, which is the mouth that is speaking words, because it's about bearing fruit. This is the producing and the bearing of the fruit of those who are on the spiritual path by that which they have produced within them, that is going to be coming and speaking a message that will pierce people within their hearts so they too can compress light in the circle of time, and they too can stand in meekness, connected to the Father, so that all shall become, this word here, leoraya, as the teaching shepherds of light, that are the companions and the friends that have married and are coming as those who are the leaders, who see the revelation, and they will be revealed as those who are of the light. That is what this is saying to us. And we were already talking previously about, in the prior verses, about our vessels, that we were making our garments of light. So in the prior verses, we were making our vessels of light. Now this is the place where they are going to be revealed. The vessels of light are now being revealed as the teaching shepherds of light, because they've become the light.
I would say too that all that, like, that's to run through that's very difficult when you're processing it.
Light speed.
I was going to say no pun intended, light speed, but that's really cool, and that's exactly what has. It's a lot of work, but if everything is up, that last word is down. Everything is a progression of inclination to become a measure, and that last word really, that is one that has come down completed. So that'll be a coming down in
So
the measure.
they went up the mountain. So connecting it to the Mount of Transfiguration. So Yeshua went up the mount to then be revealed as light in order to come down to bring forth the message, because he was the Word made flesh. Exchanged his garments of corruptible flesh for incorruptible flesh, then was revealed to his core group of his Talmudihu, of his disciples, what the potentiality was for them if they followed in the path, in the way of one. So this is the revealing of those that follow the path in the way of one, that will be revealed and transfigured in light, just like Yeshua did.
They will be loved and they will be feared.
Both. Dependent on your summation of what you've been gathered. If you have taken the fallen language to be your shepherd and your guide, or the risen language, will determine how you see those who come at the time of the meeting, which is really the wedding.
And the reason I say that is that, because I want to bring clarity to that, and I'll leave here. But the beloved and feared is because they are a summational total of mother and father. They are mercy, judgment. And so for those that will be through the love frequency, those that will be becoming, and they're seeing it for what it is. And so then the merciful act of adjudication is based off of individual summational total, as we said earlier. Your currency and where are you spending to ingather to become a summational total or a measure. Well, these ones are so balanced that they will only measure exactly based on summational development of self. So for those that haven't done the work, then it's going to be an arduous task to become, and they'll still be given the opportunity. But to them, because we still have Father within them, they will be seen as affliction, right, as an adversary. But to those that have completed and are more into the completed system, they will be called and seen as friend, lovely ones, because they'll be assisting them, because they will know exactly what the process of becoming is. So again,
so what we've always said is that there's the drawing and the repelling.
They will be an adversarial friend,
dependent upon what you've been gathered. So again, if you've been gathered through the English translation, which is the fallen language, it is going to be very confusing, because the people that come that are going to be of the light and of the night, Lila and Hallel, and we've already shared that, it is going to be very confusing for those who haven't been introduced to the risen language of what is really being shared. And so, like, the best way for us to do this is these that are of light are also of love. So when we come, and if we have made that measure and we are revealed as this last word right here, the best thing that we can do is love well, with no judgment, because this is perfected love. And so then the threat will not be from us doing, it would be coming from their own inner side that is causing the conflict and the wrestle within them, because they're not going to understand what's going on. And literally, you have to say nothing. The frequency says it all. And if they can think about it, because when we were talking in the very beginning about the foolish, it says they went away and they pondered. But what happened? After they went away and pondered what was going on, they came back as those who had been illuminated. They'd received it. So it's all going to be upon the person that this is revealed to and how they see it. And if they are teachable and humble, they will be able to take this message that is coming to them, that is meant to be revealed by these teaching shepherds. And they will no longer be the foolish. In fact, the foolish were the first ones to be marked. Because those are the first ones that were spoken of before the wise. But that's because they went away and they considered and they pondered everything that was shared. And I think about that, like when Mary went and pondered all these things that the angel had said to her, and she treasured them up in her heart, but she went away and she pondered them. She didn't dismiss them. She didn't say, oh, this is foolish, I'm going to walk away, because some people will. But those who ponder it are going to be able to receive this.
That's the definition really of moose.
Yeah.
It's the pondering and
the muse.
And
yeah.
That's where we get the conceiving, so we can bear the load of what is really what's being said. That's the whole process of that, of giving birth. You're steward it. So anyway, very cool. Very cool.
Very big verse, man. Very big verse.
Yeah.
The revealing of the teaching shepherds of light.